So we've opened to in-house during the day. So we're open Friday and Saturday for lunch, out on the veranda, which, as I painted the picture, is an absolutely beautiful space. However, on our first Friday of dine-in outdoors on the veranda, it of course snowed for the first time in Talbot for many, many years. It was quite surreal, yeah.
Today on Dirty Linen, we are heading back to the regions and we are chatting to Jayne Newgreen from Talbot Provedore Eatery. Jayne has another business which is called Provenir, so we're going to talk about both of those things in the light of recent announcements about the further easing of restrictions in Victoria. Let's find out if they're going to make any difference at all to Jayne and her business. First of all, welcome, and how are you today?
Hi, Dani. Thanks for having me on this show. I'm going pretty well, thank you.
That's good. Last time I spoke to you, you were in a paddock with a horse, but I suspect that is not the case right now.
No, I'm in my home office in front of the computer, but yeah, certainly that time away that I can get into the paddock with the horse is definitely my bliss at the moment, my time out. So even if I'm chatting and doing business out in the field.
Yeah, I imagine that would be so nice. I have certainly appreciated my dog immensely through everything that we've been going through in 2020. And I guess, a horse would just be like a dog times about 20 because all that love, all that gorgeousness, and you can ride them as well. So, yes, in my next life, I'm definitely going to have about 20 horses. But anyway, let's stay in this life for now. Jayne, there were some announcements about regional dining regarding an increase of numbers. So you're allowed to have up to 40 diners, but only 10 in each indoor space, plus an increase from 50 to 70 outdoors. Does that make any difference to you at Talbot Provedore Eatery?
Unfortunately, no, it doesn't make any difference to what we're already doing. So we've got our dining room, we've just got the single room, so we're still now limited to 10 diners indoors, and we've got an amazing north-facing veranda which stretches the length of our venue and looks out onto a beautiful ornamental and productive community garden, and we've currently got seating there for 27, which is our maximum patron density. So despite the increases, we can't do anything more than what we're already doing.
Yeah, and I suppose this brings me to something that I want to talk to you about today, and that is about, the way that you need to comb through the rules, work out what they mean for you, and then communicate them to the people that want to come and dine with you. Can you talk a bit about that and how that process has been for you through this ever-changing landscape that we're in at the moment?
Oh, look, I mean, ourselves, my partner Christopher Howe, and I, together with our staff, amazing bunch of people. We've got 3 staff on at the moment. Whenever there's been an announcement, we're there listening to the press release and then, combing through, as you say, the details that actually sit behind it. And there often are a delay on the details, and the headlines sometimes, put presumptions into customers' minds. We even had someone today asking, now you can seat 20 indoors. And it's like, well, no, actually we can't. Sure, that's the headline for Melbourne, 20 and regional 40, but we only have 1 dining room. So unfortunately, it's going to remain the same. So, of course, yesterday, Sunday, we spent probably an hour listening to the press conference and then another couple of hours sort of wading through, getting information from yourself and the groups on Facebook and other means to really drill down into the detail, and then meet with our staff and I mean, on this occasion, nothing had changed. So, but, often there's a meeting with staff afterwards to try to figure out, okay, what does it mean? Talk about everyone's interpretation. We've got some amazing people on our team that, have diverse experience and bring a great wealth of their own knowledge to the table. So every time a change has happened, we've met with the team and then looked at what we can do, what we can't do, and what we want to do moving forward as well to ensure the longevity and success of the business.
Yeah, well, let's pull back a little bit and just explain to us what the Provedore was until it had to be a whole bunch of other things as well.
Sure. Yeah. So we call ourselves a Provedore Eatery. So that's what we are. Our focus in Talbot, we're located sort of north of Ballarat, south of Maryborough, a little bit north of Clunes, a lot of people are familiar with. We're a town of around 400 people. In town is our Provedore Eatery, the post office, the pub. There used to be a corner store which got closed down a little while back. So, it's a tiny town. One thing that it does have is an amazing, or did have, was an amazing farmers market, which attracts thousands of people to the town in the past. And so we built our business really based off supporting local producers in the area and providing an opportunity, providing a place for local community to meet, to congregate, to have a meal. Our business is, I guess, in the past it was probably primarily an eatery with the Provedore on the side. And we also have a regional wine store which focuses on wine sourced from regions within 100 kilometres of Talbot, which includes some pretty amazing wineries, vineyards, in the Pyrenees region, Ballarat, etc. So we're in a pretty special place there. And so we've got the indoor dining space, which the dining tables are surrounded by shelves laden with local produce, jars of preserved fruits and olives and olive oil and rolled oats from Burrum Biodynamics. And then outdoors on the veranda is, there's just a beautiful space to sit and dine. So that's what we were, I guess. We were essentially a dine-in place with takeaway coffee and the Provedore store and wine store. So operating a multifaceted sort of business, which, we felt we needed to do given the locality and the size of the town. We had a really strong local customer base, but then also attracted people from Melbourne and the regions to come and dine with us as well.
And what would be a typical dish that someone might expect to have with you?
Oh, I think one of the most popular dishes, which was actually created by one of our past chefs, was the Thai son-in-law eggs. So local free-range eggs, and he just created a beautiful tamarind sauce that went with it, and it would be on the menu. Initially it was actually served to us as a staff meal, and as soon as Christopher tasted it, he is like, this is going on the menu, and we could not get it off the menu. People just, as soon as we tried to change things up a little bit, they're like, where are the Thai eggs? So we've sort of we've moved on from that, but that was definitely a dish that stood the test of time, and people would have it for breakfast, they'd have it for lunch, they'd have it for afternoon tea. So yeah, it was a really popular one. But other dishes might be, we love taking full cuts, like we'll buy full lambs from our local producer, blackface Suffolk lambs at Glen Greenock Farm, and break them down and then just do a beautiful braised lamb dish and for dinner and that type of thing. So really celebrating the local. Yeah.
Sounds really good. So how have you guys navigated your way through the pandemic?
Well, I guess from the beginning, I guess, we closed down and then immediately went to takeaway, which was something we had never done before. So, that was a massive pivot and finding our feet, like even the little details, like within a week we needed to source all the containers, and I managed to within the space of a week get an online ordering form on the website, and then have people pick what time they could come in. So we were limiting the amount of people in the store at any one time, and there were 10-minute time frame, so they'd pre-order online, and we'd have their meals waiting for them, so that we could serve people and they felt safe, not having to be in the shop with lots of other people, and of course sticking to the patron density requirements at that time. And then sort of in the middle, where we did have the opportunity to return to dining, we probably took a little while to get to that stage. There was a little bit of caution and trepidation there, and then also the process of, okay, how's this actually going to work? And so we reopened to dine in on our Saturday evening dinners, and did that for a couple of weeks, and then got shut down again. So that was really difficult. We were, I think, 3 weeks into our first monthly dinner menu, and that was all done. So now we're back to dine in, but outdoors for us. So because we have such a diverse space where people pop in for a coffee, pop in for takeaway, lunch meals, might browse the Provedore and pick up a couple of items of local produce. We stock milk and bread and all the sort of staples. And then the wine store, because we're limited to 10 people within the space, we haven't introduced in-house dining indoors yet, because as soon as we seat, for example, a table of 5, then we only can have 5 more people inside our venue. So it's really hard to sort of navigate and manage that. So we've opened to in-house during the day. So we're open Friday and Saturday for lunch, out on the veranda, which, as I painted the picture, is an absolutely beautiful space. However, on our first Friday of dine in outdoors on the veranda, it of course snowed for the first time in Talbot for many, many years. It was quite surreal. Yeah.
So crazy. It's like, welcome to outdoor dining, guys. And you just thrown into
Absolutely. So we had people who had booked and they rang up and cancelled, and I don't blame them. But then we had quite a few other people who were so determined to enjoy this opportunity. They sat there, they loved it, they thanked us, and, they were rugged up with their beanies on, and it was, I just felt so grateful that they came along and they endured the weather, and they were in great spirits. So
yeah, oh bless them. Jayne, as you're talking, you really get to understand how individual and personal all these regulations and restrictions are. Like it's, a dining limit plays out so differently in different venues, and it's not just about the square meterage. It's about, as you've eloquently explained, it's about the type of business that you're running and the other ways that you want to stay open and to serve your communities. It's so specific, and you have to put so much thought into every permutation. It's just I just really feel for you with the energy that you need to put into all this decision making, and I guess also just explaining to diners who are coming from their own lives and their own worlds, their own understanding of the situations, and perhaps haven't put certainly have not put as much time into thinking about it as you have. I mean, tell me how that's played out. Like, how has the communication gone for you with the people who do want to visit you as customers?
Yeah, well, I mean, you absolutely said it right, Dani. We have found not so much the hours that our store and Provedore and Eatery is open, but all of the work that's going on behind the scenes, the hours of wading through, the regulatory requirements, changing processes behind the scene. It's been exhausting for us and our staff, and emotionally taxing as well. This what we're doing now is not what we set out to do. It's not why we're in the business, but we're holding on. And look, there's been great opportunity in this as well. Like the takeaway, we'd always said that we wanted to do it, and we got a very big, motivational kick, in the direction of making that happen within the space of a week. And now it's, a fixture that the community have embraced and, love their Friday night takeaways. So we'll continue to do that. So, but with regards to, the constant change, what we've tried to do is remain as consistent as possible, because part of it, as you noted, is the communication to the customers. And every time you change hours or change offering, that requires more communication for our small community to understand what it is we're doing, when and we're doing it. So while there has been changes, we've tried to limit the effect of that on what we're doing. And when we make a decision, it's really considered. Like I said, we bring in our team to talk about what we want to do moving forward as a whole, and then we stick to it. We want to keep moving forward. We don't want to step back. So we've had great support from the community. We've recently opened to dine in for our Saturday evening dinners as well. So we can only seat 10, but we're doing that. And, it's just been great to welcome people back into the space. But then people, hear the announcements and say, oh, so, you're allowed to reopen. Are you going back to your usual hours, which we used to be operational Thursday through to Sunday. And it's like, well, no, we can't just flip back to that. We essentially can't have anyone indoors dining in during the day. We're 27 on the veranda, down from about 50. That's a huge cut to what we could previously offer. So we can't offer the same thing. Most people are really understanding and they get it, and it might be an innocent question they haven't actually thought that much about, but once you say, well, no, actually we can't do this, and Sunday for us, would just be another challenge with the Sunday rates, penalty rates, and the limitations on our offering at the moment. So it's something that, we'd love to be able to offer as a business and to our local community, but we're still quite restricted in that way. So there's been a couple, yeah.
There's been, you mentioned, someone complaining they couldn't come in on a Sunday for coffee and cake, and I guess can be hard to have those conversations with people that, when you're in the business of saying yes to people, it's hard to have those tricky conversations sometimes.
Yeah, and look, if we felt it was viable and the longevity of our business was sustainable to open the doors to more hours, then we would. But unfortunately, just at this time, we can't. So we're not going to be able to do that for now. And we're just taking it, one step at a time, hoping for the relaxation of greater of the restrictions to enable us to do that. But then there's also the sense within a small community of keeping our people safe as well. And there has been pressure on us in the other direction of, well, the Provedore's open, who's coming and where are they coming from? So, and from our staff as well, from the safety of our staff perspective, we want to keep our staff safe. We don't have young staff. We have, mature staff who, are fully aware of the situation, are mindful of their own health. We have many local community members who dine with us that are, older, and so the risk, I guess, would be increased for them. And the perception of just, not wanting to be the one that has the Melbourne worker sort of dine in or get through. Of course we're checking IDs now, but, to have that person drop in for a takeaway coffee and then, who brings COVID to town sort of thing, that's a difficult thing to navigate in a very small community as well.
Sure. Although I feel like that cafe owner in Kilmore and the other one in Shepparton, they're almost like Victorian heroes now, because they'd done all the right things with their contact tracing, with taking people's records, and the contact tracing was able to happen from those venues very swiftly. And I feel, what can you do? You can only be as compliant as possible and do all the right things. And then, from that point, it's bad luck. Hey, I think hopefully we're at a point where we understand how contagious this coronavirus is, and there not going to be pushback on businesses who are unlucky enough to be affected. That you mentioned the postcode, or finding out where your diners are coming from. So that is a really onerous undertaking that regional businesses have to do now. So you're required to ensure that none of your dine-in customers are from Metro Melbourne, under with a penalty of a $10,000 fine if you don't. So that is big. How are you navigating that?
Yeah, sure. So that's just been in play, for 1 week of our operations now, and I'm so pleased to say that all of our customers have just been so understanding. That it's almost like, I think it was well publicised. They were familiar that they were going to be asked, or they'd already dined at somewhere else that they'd shown their identification. So, but for us, it's still a challenge in that we have spatial limitations, and if we have a table of 5 and we need to check each of their identifications prior to seating them, then where do we do that within our physical space? If we do that indoors, because they generally walk in the front door and we've got a one-way flow to our veranda through the side door. And if a staff member is greeting a party of 5, checking their identification, and then 2 people are, waiting for takeaway coffees, and another 3 people walk through the door, we're at maximum capacity. You sort of have to head count constantly and ask people to wait outside, and we want to welcome people. We don't want to push people back out of our door, and of course you say it as nicely as possible and people are understanding, but it's still something that's very it doesn't feel good, and it's not what we want to do. And then there's the added complexity of, one of our staff members is from regional Victoria, another one is out of Sydney. She's not familiar with every suburb in Victoria, nor would I be, having lived here my whole life. So we've got a cheat sheet by the counter of which suburbs are in metropolitan area. Then we've got the Know Your Council website on our point of sale at switch over and put in a postcode if we're not sure whether they're in or out of metropolitan Melbourne. So it's not as easy as citing an ID and just having people take the seat. So it's added another layer of complexity, but we're also understanding of the need for it. And so we've got a QR code on our menus now and most people are doing the self-check-in, and we can verify that instantly on the back end. So we're trying to streamline it as much as possible.
Yeah, wow. There is so much to think about. All right, let's put the Provedore to one side and let's talk about Provenir. First of all, I want to congratulate you because you just won the Outstanding Innovation, Sustainability and Community Award at the Delicious Produce Awards. Congratulations. That's so great. So tell us what Provenir is.
Okay. So Provenir is a fully integrated meat processing company. It's the vision of myself and 4 co-founders who wanted to produce Australia's best beef And we do that by processing on-farm at the point of production in our mobile on-farm abattoir. So essentially, instead of the animals having to be put on the back of a truck and being taken to the abattoir, we go to the farm and process them on the farm in their own environment with their own handlers, allowing them to be as calm as possible. And that comes through in the quality of the meat that we produce.
I just think it's so exciting that you're doing this. It's just so brilliant. I think, for so many cattle, the only time they leave their farm is that final journey on a long truck ride. And because of the consolidation of abattoirs all around the world, but let's just talk about Australia or Victoria, there's such a consolidation. There aren't those smaller regional abattoirs. Many of those have been closed down. So the animals are trucked further. The ensuing stress, raises their stress. And that's, as you say, like, you can see that in the meat. And I think for so many farmers who care for their animals so carefully, from birth to putting them onto a truck, it breaks that chain. And I know that farmers don't want that. They don't want that to be the final. They don't want to lose control of their animal and the meat quality. They put all that work into it. To let go at that final point is just distressing for everybody, people and animals alike. I think it's just so fantastic. How long has the journey been in getting Provenir up and going?
For me personally, it's been about 7 years. So it's we're now into our 16th month of operations. We launched in New South Wales and we gained our licence to operate in New South Wales in June of 2019, and then a couple of 2 months or so ago in Victoria as well. So we're now, which was luckily achieved in Victoria. We're processing on Victorian farms in our home state now. And so for me, 7 years ago, I was working with some regional producers. They were selling direct to customers and I was helping them to promote their product and sell direct. And it's exactly that, the consolidation of abattoirs that I heard these farmers talk about. Some of them, they were reliant on one processor. They had to transport their stock a long way to get to that processor, and their business was really hinged on something that was very fragile. Together with that, I actually I live in the bush out in Evansford, and so we can't raise a lot of animals, but because the space we have available to us, we actually, my partner Christopher Howe, also co-founder of Provenir, is a chef, and he cooks. I love growing food, so I decided I wanted to raise some pigs, and so we raised the pigs, we foraged for them, and we fed them up. And then the day came when it was time to slaughter them. I was greatly inspired by Matthew Evans and the episode that he did on Gourmet Farmer of like how to kill a pig. And we basically followed, that episode as a rule book. And we're out here in the bush. We live off grid, so we had limited space in refrigeration and that type of thing. So to kill a pig, you need a lot of space to store that meat if you're going to refrigerate it or freeze it down. So we decided to go with a lot of the traditional hanging techniques that Matthew talks about on that episode. We processed those pigs on farm, and I witnessed firsthand that transition from, I'm getting chills, sorry. I witnessed that, I'd fed these pigs, I'd cared for these pigs their whole life, and I witnessed that transition between life and death, and then the process of them becoming meat, and that careful balance, that care that you spoke about before of the farmers who raise the cattle for Provenir. That's exactly what I felt about these pigs. I'd tended to them every day. I'd cared for them for their entire life. The death was the most swift. They didn't know it was coming, and the meat that we experienced, it was so hard to explain how good it was, and it's very hard to know whether you're putting your own bias on it because of the connection that you have to that animal and that meat. But we'd, have friends over for dinner and feed them a dinner of our pork, or, we made prosciutto and lomo and pancetta. And everyone agreed that the meat was just incredible. And so that's where the questioning began for me of why can everyone not have this experience? Why can't we process animals at the point of production, eliminating that stress and just having the most pure product just as we intended to raise it as meat? It's almost like we raise these animals to this point of being the best they can, and then we put them on a truck and the degradation starts, the adrenaline goes, the cortisol, and it's not how it should be. So that's where, for me, the journey of Provenir began.
Wow, that's really such a powerful tale. So given that you had that revelation with pigs, why did you start with cattle with Provenir?
Sure. So there's a long time between my experience with the pigs and then, I guess, getting started with Provenir. We met with fellow co-founders. We went through an amazing program called SproutX, which is an ag tech accelerator ran out of Melbourne. We raised capital. We looked at the business case for a mobile abattoir because, this was our ideal to process on farm to produce the best quality of meat. But, it was never going to happen if the business wasn't sound and sustainable. The reason that we went into beef initially was because it provided the best opportunity for carcass utilisation, for processing that animal and then being able to supply that product into the restaurants, retailers and direct to consumers that we do. Pigs have added complexity of skinning or dehairing the animal. We are the unit itself is like a micro abattoir on wheels in a big semi-trailer with a mobile cool room piloted up alongside it that the cattle walk onto and are stunned and slaughtered and dehydrated and processed and halved and then put into a mobile cool room. If we had to add the complexity of dehairing, it would be another. We'd love to get there one day. And I was just speaking to a free range pig producer yesterday, and she was asking whether we did pigs, and I said, I'm so sorry, but we don't yet. But maybe one day down the track. So, but our next. Aside from cattle, we do hope to one day move into lamb. That's probably been put a bit on the back burner due to COVID. And again, there's sort of this, I guess, a throughput. We would have to process a lot more lamb to make it all work. Yeah, because we have a crew of 4 people on site, and it's a big operation that we run. A big, small operation.
How many cattle can you put through at a time?
So we're doing around 15 per day. It depends on the size of the cattle themselves and how long it takes to move them through the process. And then also the other limitation is the cool room, the mobile cool room that we use to transport them from their on-farm location back to our central butchery hub, which is based in Bannockburn, Victoria. So they then get unloaded there and run through the hanging process and through the butchery and through to our restaurant partners and retailers.
I think it's just absolutely brilliant. I'm so glad that you've been recognised with that award. I think it's just something that a lot of people have thought about, the foodways generally and meat supply more specifically through COVID. We've had cause to question more closely where our food comes from. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing and I suppose our abattoir and food systems in general and how that fragility has been exposed through the pandemic?
Yeah. Well, it's been interesting because meatworks have been in the news and there has been a few outbreaks there. We are a fairly small team and we've been largely unaffected apart from, just having to put in extra protocol around a COVID safe workplace. But we've had from the very start a lot of interest from consumers, mainly, but also chefs sort of wanting to know where that food is coming from, and that's something that our name is Provenir. It's derived from the word provenance. We're all about capturing that provenance on the farm, but then also linking the farmer with the people that eat that meat as well. So we've actually developed a traceability system that we based on QR codes, essentially. And so a QR code is generated at the point of that slaughter, and that is then translated onto the packaging of the meat that goes out to the restaurant or goes out to the consumer. And what's behind that QR code, aside from the technical sort of traceability, is the ability for us to tell the story of where that food comes from. So we go to the farms, we're working on the farms, we're seeing what our farmers are doing. We're all about supporting farmers that are regenerative farmers, that are, looking after their land in the best possible way that we know. They're utilising cattle to actually store carbon in the soils through cell grazing. And so we want to connect our idea was, we're producing on farm, so we want to celebrate that provenance and provide that provenance to the consumer. One thing that we didn't realise, and you touched on it before, with regards to how the farmers feel about putting their cattle on a truck, the farmers have come back to us with feedback about how good it feels for them to have the name of their farm on the label, or they might be on Instagram themselves and they'll get a notification from a consumer who's just eaten their beef and has posted a picture of their meal and tagged the farmer because they've found them via the QR code. And so we're actually connecting the farmer with the consumer and the consumer with the farmer. And there's a lot more ideas behind that I've got of how I want to make that connection stronger, but it's budding and it's there, and it's just incredible for us to be in the middle sort of facilitating that provenance.
Oh, it's giving me chills. I just think that's so beautiful. And I think if there's one thing that we really should come out of this pandemic with, it's a sense of our connection and all those different webs that we can create that draw us closer together and make us realize how much we rely on one another and the land that we live on, in, with. And we just need strong local food systems to survive, thrive, and knit our community. I think I think about all the things that must go through your mind on an average day, Jayne. You've got so much going on. And I just think when you're talking about the QR codes, I think about you then back in the eatery, and just when you're thinking about contact, it's like taking customer contact details, you're like, QR codes, I got that nailed. Don't worry about that. I get those.
Oh, look, it's been a massive learning curve. I'm actually a photographer. That's my background. The hospitality thing was new to me, and certainly never dreamed that I'd be, a co-founder on a startup company that launched Australia's first mobile abattoir. But we follow these paths of passion, and this is where we end up.
Wow. It's really, it is really incredible. You do not know where the road is going to take you. I am glad that the road has taken me to this conversation and chatting to you today, Jayne. Is there anything that you want to say before we say our sad goodbye?
Look, I think just, I don't know what to say. Look, just get out there and support your local producers, support your local eateries and restaurants and the people in the hospo industry. I'm probably talking to the converted. We're in it, we're working in it, but where possible, just keep supporting local. That's all.
Yeah. We will. So thank you so much, Jayne Newgreen. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I've learnt so much and I cannot wait to get to Talbot. Whether or not there's the Thai eggs or not, maybe there'll be some great lamb, maybe there'll be some Provenir beef, but I know that it's going to be a beautiful, warm welcome, and I will show you my driver's license. I will follow all the rules and I'll sit where you tell me to, and I'll tip big. So thanks so much for visiting me at Dirty Linen today.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Dani, for having me on.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about. We spend a week thrashing around each issue, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinenat.deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.